Unit 68 ing clauses. Ing clauses means a verb plus ing clauses. They are called reduced clauses. For example, feeling tired, I went to bed early. In this sentence, we have two clauses. Feeling tired is a subordinate clause, and I went to bed early is a main clause. Clauses are a group of words that have a subject and a verb. It is of two kinds. It can be classified into two kinds: main clause and subordinate clause. Main clause can stand alone and give a complete meaning. That's why it can be called a sentence. For example, we were studying English. This is a complete sentence. It can be called main clause, a main clause, or independent clause. On the other hand, we have subordinate clause. It is a group of words that have a subject and verb and function as one of the part, or works as one of the part of speech, the parts of speech. For example, noun, adjective, and adverb. They can't stand alone and give a complete meaning. They are meaningless. For example, we have here the subordinate clause, when he knocked at the door. It is meaningless. It must be connected to a main clause to form a complex sentence and to be meaningful. The main clause gives it a meaning. Study these situations. Joe was playing football. He hurt his knee. You can say Joe hurt his knee playing football. Or if you want to complete the clause, you can say Joe hurt his knee while he was playing football. Imagine this sentence. Joe hurt his knee while he was playing football. While is a conjunction here, a subordinate conjunction, and he was subject and linking verb. When we want to get a reduced clause, so we cut off the conjunction here, while and he and the linking verb, and what remains? Joe hurt his knee playing football. You were feeling tired, so you went to bed early. You can say feeling tired, I went to bed early. As I was feeling tired, I went to bed early. Imagine this sentence again. As I was feeling tired, I went to bed early. I went to bed early is a main clause, and as I was feeling tired is a subordinate clause. If you cut off as, I, and was, then we have feeling tired, I went to bed early. But in this case, you can reduce the clause if the subject of the main clause is the same subject of the subordinate clause. Here the subject of the main clause is I, and the subject of the subordinate clause is I as well. So you can reduce it and cut off as plus I plus the linking verb. What remains? Feeling tired, comma, I went to bed early. Who is feeling tired? I. The subject after the comma. Feeling tired, we have after feeling tired we have a comma, and the subject of the main clause I after the comma is the subject of the subordinate clause feeling tired, which is called reduced clause. Why it is called reduced clauses or ing clause? Because you cut off the subject, the linking verb, the linking verb and the subject and the and the conjunction. Playing football and feeling tired are ing clauses. After reducing the clauses, you get the verb plus ing and the complement. The verb plus ing and the complement. Here playing football. While he was playing football. As I was feeling tired. If you cut the conjunction and the subject and the linking verb, you will get what is called the ing clause. You will get what is called the ing clause, or what is called reduced clause. If the ing clause is at the beginning of the sentence, as in the second example, then we write a comma. In other words, if you start your sentence with the subordinate clause, you use a comma. If you start your sentence with the main clause, then you don't use a comma. Look, for example, Joe hurt his knee playing football. Here we did not use the comma, but because the main clause started the sentence. But in the other example, we have feeling tired, comma, I went to bed. The main clause is I went to bed. It is written at the end. If we start the sentence like this, I went to bed feeling tired, then we don't use comma. When two things happen at the same time, you can use an ing clause. If we speak of two actions that take place at the same time, then we use an ing clause. Kate is in the kitchen making coffee. Kate is in the kitchen and she was making coffee. Both actions are going together. So we cut off the conjunction and the subject she and the linking verb is. So the sentence became like this. Kate is in the kitchen making coffee. A man ran out of the house shouting. A man ran out of the house and he was shouting. And he was shouting. If you cut off and plus he plus was, then you get the sentence, a man ran out of the house shouting. Who's shouting? The man, the subject of the main clause. When the subject of the main clause and the subordinate clause is the same, then you can make the reduction and get the ing clause. Do something. Don't just stand there doing nothing. Don't just stand there while you are doing nothing. While you are doing nothing, if you cut off while, you and are, then you get doing nothing. We also use ing when one action happens during another action. When one action happens during another action, then we use an ing clause. We use ing for the longer action. We use ing clause for the longer action. Remember this. When two actions are going together or happen, one action happens during another action, then you use ing clause for the longer action. For example, Joe hurt his knee playing football. This sentence is like that. Joe hurt his knee while he was playing football. While he was playing football. Hurt is the short action and playing football is the long action. So we use reduce the clause for the long action. while he was playing football. So we cut off while, we cut off he, and we cut off was. Then we get a sentence like this: Joe hurt his knee playing football. Another example: did you cut yourself shaving? Means, did you cut yourself while you were shaving? While you were shaving. Cut is a short action, but shaving is a long action. So you must use the reduced clause for the long action, because you cut yourself during shaving. Then we use for the long action a reduced clause, or what is called ing clause. So if you cut off while and you and where, then you will have shaving. The sentence becomes like this: did you cut yourself shaving? You can also use ing after while or when. You can keep the conjunction and cut off the subject and the linking verb. But this also is done when the subject of the main clause is the subject of the same subject of the subordinate clause. Jim hurt his knee while he was playing football. So we can cut off he and was and leave while. It becomes like this: Jim hurt his knee while playing football. Another example: be careful when crossing the road. It means be careful when you are crossing the road. The subject of the first sentence, you be careful when you are crossing the road. So the same subject, the subject of the main clause is the subject of the subordinate clause. So you can reduce the subordinate clause and cut off the subject and the linking verb, and you get the sentence like this: be careful when crossing the road. When one action happens before another action, we use having done for the first action. When two actions come one after another, then we use having plus past participle for the first action, for the action comes in the first. For example, having found a hotel, we looked for somewhere to have dinner. Means, after we had found a hotel, we looked for somewhere to have dinner. This is the complete clause sentence. After we had found a hotel, we looked for somewhere to have dinner. The first action was in the subordinate clause. After we had found a hotel. To reduce it, then we cut off after and the subject we, and had is transferred into a verb plus ing, then it becomes have plus ing. So it becomes having, and found is the past participle after having. So the sentence becomes like this: having found a hotel, we looked for somewhere to have dinner. The other sentence, the first action was after she had finished her work, she went home. The first action was after she had finished her work in the subordinate clause, and the second action was went in the main clause. She went home. If you want to reduce it, you cut off after and you cut off she, and had is changed into verb plus ing. What is the base form of had? The base form of had is have. So we add ing to have, it becomes having. And finished is the past participle. So the sentence becomes like this. Having finished her work, she went home. You can also say after plus verb plus ing. You can say after finishing. If you want to do more reduction, then you cut off the linking verb as well. You cut off had. So we have, and you leave after. After she had finished her work, she went home. We cut she and we cut have. What remains? After and finished. And we change finished into verb plus ing. It becomes like this. After finishing her work, she went home. If one short action follows another short action, you can use the simple verb plus ing. If the two actions are short, then you can use verb plus ing form instead of having done, instead of having plus past participle for the first action. If the two actions are short, then you can use for the first action verb plus ing instead of having a plus past participle. Taking a key out of his pocket, he opened the door. He opened the door is the main clause, and taking the key out of his pocket is the subordinate clause, and it is the ing clause, which is a reduced clause. After he had taken a key out of his pocket, he opened the door. It can be having taken a key out of his pocket, he opened the door. But because the first action is short, taking the key out of the pocket is it doesn't take seconds. So that's why we can use verb plus ing only. So we cut off after, we cut off he, the subject, and we cut off had, the linking verb, and transfer the main verb, which is taken in the past participle, into verb plus ing. It becomes taking. So the sentence becomes like this. Taking a key out of his pocket, he opened the door. These structures are used more in written English than in spoken English. D. You can use an ing clause to explain something or to say why somebody does something. The ing clause usually comes at the beginning of the sentence. It usually comes at the beginning of the sentence. Feeling tired, comma, I went to bed early. As I was feeling tired, I went to bed early. Or because I felt tired, I went to bed early. So we cut off because, we cut off I, and we change felt into feeling. Verb plus ing. So it becomes ing clause. Feeling tired, I went to bed early. Being unemployed, he hasn't got much money. Because he is unemployed, he hasn't got much money. This is the complete form sentence. So if you want to reduce the subordinate clause, then you cut off because, and you cut off he, and is changed into verb plus ing. What is the base form of is? It is be. So it becomes being unemployed, he hasn't got much money. Not having a car, she finds it difficult to get around. Because she doesn't have a car, she finds it difficult to get around. We cut off because and she, and doesn't is replaced by not, and have is changed into have plus ing. It becomes having. The verb plus ing is preceded by not by doesn't. So it becomes not having a car. She finds it difficult to get around. Another example. Having already seen the film twice, I didn't want to go to the cinema. Because I had already seen it twice, I didn't want to go to the cinema. We cut off because, we cut off we cut off and change had into having, into the base form plus I and G. So had becomes have, and have plus ing, it becomes having. So the sentence becomes like this. Having already seen the film twice, I didn't want to go to the cinema. These structures are used more in written English than in spoken English. Finally, you have the summary. You can review the summary of this unit. Thank you.